What's going on, y'all? I'm Sean, the owner and lead tutor of Math Swap Tutoring. And let me tell you something, in case you didn't know, engineering school is way different than the profession of engineering. It might seem like a duh kind of thing, but I'm not going to just assume that it is for you, the young person who wants to become an engineer, who either is about to go to school or you're about to get out of college and start your engineering career. It is way different. I had a rude awakening when I first became an engineer right out of college in 2007. So basically, in a nutshell, what is it that makes it different? Of course, in engineering school, you're learning and whatnot, but it's theoretical. It's a lot of math, a lot of science, a lot of the basic raw materials of engineering. You learn calculus-based physics. You learn calculus 1, 2, multivariable calculus, differential equations. You learn circuits 1 and 2, electronics 1 and 2. You learn systems, signals and systems. All those. Keep in mind, I'm a double E. I'm an electronics engineer major. So there's a little bit of difference between me and other engineering professions, but you're still going to have some of those basic things. You learn programming, all that kind of stuff. But you learn a lot of like the foundational things. When you get into the profession, it's all applied. And not only that, unless you go into research and development, you will not do calculation. You may do a lot of programming. You may do a lot of that because of the kind of world that we live in. But even with that, you are not going to be in you're not going to be learning, a lot of the engineering stuff has already been done, so to speak. And unless you're doing research and development, what will happen is you're using tools that have been created by engineers in the past. And if you do any engineering, you're going to perhaps improve on those things, perhaps somewhat, or use those tools. But you're not going to do calculus and physics and all that kind of stuff necessarily, unless you're like developing new products, perhaps. And is this, like a shock to you? If it is a shock, I mean, I can assume that some people might be shocked and be like, "Oh, I'm glad about that," because I didn't really want to be doing math and stuff by the time I got to that level. So some people may be happy about that. Some people may be upset about that, because another thing that I noticed that was very different is that when I got into the profession, I had to go to meetings. I had to boarding meetings too. I still had like learning classes and stuff like that here and there, but I had to deal with red tape where you have a project and then maybe you have to wait on somebody, you have to wait for some process to happen, and you're just sitting there. And again, that will probably depend, it'll differ depending on where you work, but I know that's a lot of what happened to me. I had meetings, I had to write different type of documentation and whatnot, and I had to deal with the red tape, like the stuff where you might not be working for a while because you're waiting on a process to kind of follow through, or you're waiting on a person to do some sort of something. And that was hard. That was difficult for me because I just envisioned that engineering was going to be this fast paced kind of thing. Don't get me wrong. Again, it depends a lot on where you go, who you work for. Like I said, I was doing stuff that was kind of in aerospace, government kind of stuff. So a lot of red tape does come with that particular area, if you're engineering there. But even still, though, you don't learn that when you're in engineering school, perhaps unless you actually begin to like work while you're in school, like you do like an internship or a co-op or something like that, which might be a good idea, by the way. That's something that I didn't pursue a whole lot, because I was just more so focused on school. I had a little job at Chick-fil-A, so I was just doing that. But it probably is a good idea for that, on that note, for you to get like some sort of real world experience, perhaps even while you're in school, not just so you can have it on your resume, but so you can actually see what the real engineering world looks like. Okay. Because I'll say this and let this be it. When you're in school from kindergarten or pre-K to 12th grade and then beyond into, the 4 years of undergrad. Perhaps, some people stay and go ahead and get that master's immediately. I didn't. I waited like a couple of years. When you're in school that long, then you kind of still are in a school mentality. But when you enter into the real world, you kind of see, in some ways, it's just less. Well, it's not like school. It's just not. It's just not. So it might be a good idea to get an internship or a co-op or whatnot, or somehow to like be able to see the workplace where real engineers work and whatnot. So it's very different. You won't be doing a whole lot of theory and learning all the math and the science and stuff whenever you're out of school necessarily. It can be boring sometimes in the professional world, depending on where you are. Okay? So again, just take that for a grain of salt. I understand if you end up working for one of the really popular high-tech companies, a lot of these quick moving startups, it could be a lot different. I can imagine that. I worked beside some contractors and whatnot whose jobs were a bit more fast-paced than mine was. But that said, the real world is different than the college world. Just understand that.